Our next speaker is George Bai, CEO of Bai Aerospace. I feel silly even introducing you, George, but I need to. George Bai, an aviation pioneer, is the CEO and founder of Bai Aerospace. Among his aircraft designs are a small solar-electric hybrid UAV, the Silent Falcon, an electric aircraft for pilot training, Sunflyer, to be Part 23 certified, and the new solar-electric hybrid UAV program, the StratoAirNet. Previously, he launched, developed, and led the company designing the Javelin, a transonic two-seat jet for military and civil utility. George has a BS in engineering from the University of Washington, go Huskies, is an ATP-rated pilot, and has logged over 4,000 flying hours. He was a USAF instructor pilot in the supersonic T-38 for the Euro-NATO joint jet pilot training, C-141B Instructor Aircraft Commander, and is a veteran of Desert Storm. His presentation today is an update on the all-electric Sunflyer. Please welcome George.
That's hard to say. Euro-NATO joint jet pilot training, NJET. I was in Denver. Of course, we're based in Denver, and we have a new technology branch of the Wings Over the Rockies Flight Museum. And if you haven't been to Denver and seen the great facilities they have at the old Lowry Air Force Base, I welcome you to come visit us, of course, but to come see the museum there they have at Lowry. At Centennial Airport, they just opened up a new facility. It's a technology STEM kind of invigorating outreach to young people is their primary focus. They have a blue sky and a black sky program and plan over time. Blue sky, they opened up just last night. I got to give Harrison Ford a tour of our Sunflyer airplane. The Boom Supersonic folks were there and some other things. It was great fun. But two-star General Love was there, and he was an NJET student in 1986 in where I was training. General Golfing, the current Chief of Staff, is also an NJET graduate. So NJET, Euro-NATO Joint Jet Pilot Training. That was Shepherd Air Force Base in Texas. A lot of who I am today came out of that experience. I was, as you mentioned, an engineering graduate from University of Washington. I taught aerodynamics at NJET. And one of the kind of inspirations that I tried to pass on to our students, including General Golfing and General Love, was applied aerodynamics, that is, how aerodynamics fits into both the Air Force mission, but also how it fits into how we design an airplane. Now, let me tell you, number one, design, the things that we do as engineers need to have a purpose. So I always say design with a purpose. Research and development for a purpose. But one of the great reasons why this airplane is possible is because of the aerodynamics, the lift-to-drag ratio. I understand there was a presenter yesterday talking about, general aviation. And general aviation, struggles with how do you make a Cessna electric, for example. I think the example yesterday was a Belanca, if I remember, somebody told me. We flew a Cessna 172. For a couple of years, we converted it to electric propulsion. How interesting, there's some 40,000 Cessna 172s produced. The number one aircraft produced in all the world of all types of all kinds, Cessna 172. A great aircraft, great utility, great trainer, rugged, tough. Not a good design when it comes to L over D. It's a great trainer, but in the 50 or 60 years, you can see here with the Sunflyer, there's a lot of differences when it comes to structural systems and aerodynamics, the amount of drag that it takes to go from a conventional propulsion system to an electric propulsion system. Our L over D is literally twice that of that Cessna. I'll show you some numbers here in a minute. But the purpose behind it is always to solve a problem. Years ago, we began to talk about a pilot shortage. That pilot shortage today is real, and people are beginning to embrace and understand that if we don't come up with solutions for that, we're going to be in dire straits. That thin haul that you were talking about, the locations across the country, one of the reasons why we can't reach there is not just the economics, but we're just out of pilots for the airplanes to get there. A number of regional airlines have shut down, literally bankrupt, because they don't have pilots. Flight training schools can't keep CFIs long enough because they're on their way to, of course, regionals and soon on to the major airlines as well. We need to be thinking forward about solving the problem of the pilot shortage, not just here in the States, but around the world. Electric aircraft help solve that problem. The Sunflyer exists today as a viable business interest because we're trying to solve an economic problem. At $3 of electricity per flight hour, as compared to about $50 or so, give or take, of avgas, that's a gigantic differential. The number one reason why student pilots drop out is the cost of training. 80% don't make it through their private pilot initial gateway because of the cost. It gets their wallet. And if we can address the cost of flying, we can address, or at least begin to address, this pilot training and the pilot shortage that we have. I have an exciting video, kind of fun. We'll start with that, and then we'll go through an update for you. Gotta have some fun here. Yeah, I almost want to stand up and clap or something, you know. That's pretty cool. You know, I come back here every year, and we talk about electric aviation. Many of the things, you know, we talk about, we've discussed before. But one of the things I'm happy to report to all of you as my friends and fellow technicians and engineers is that we're flying now. And isn't that cool? We're flying. Yeah, I'll just do that. The theory becomes reality. All of the technology, all of the aspects coming together make a real airplane really fly with the real solution. So let's get here. Let's give you an update today. I just had a, oops. There we go. I just had an annual stockholder meeting a few days ago, and it's kind of fun. I feel like I'm before my stockholders now, or stakeholders, maybe we'll say. We have a great team. Charlie Johnson, of course, is working with us, the former Cessna president. We just added Tom Bowen, the former chief engineer from Mooney as well. So we'll have a picture of the four of us there shortly, but some great industry leaders that I'm very proud to work with. Josh is one of our partners as well. Many of you here have worked with us over the years, I know. But we do agree this industry wins when we collaborate. And meetings like this, where we discuss our common problems and approaches, are very, very critically important to our ultimate success. As you know, it's not just the Sunflyer 2, which is a trainer focus. We have a four-seat aircraft that we've unveiled actually just 1 year ago today. It's a personal aircraft, a business aircraft, and also, interestingly, potentially an on-demand air charter aircraft. Its economics and speed enable the possibility of some of those fingers that you were talking about, reaching out and providing on-demand air charter for those communities that would like to enjoy that kind of community access. But the bottom line is the baseline aircraft is the Sunflyer 2, and it's a combination, perhaps the most important aspect, as I've said, is the cost aspect. $3 per flight hour is absolutely revolutionary. The fully certified aspect of the aircraft is critically important as well. This last year, we made application with the FAA, the first in the world for a FAR Part 23 certified electric aircraft, #1. Very cool. But one of the reasons why the Sunflyer works is that it's not constrained by weight. A light sport or advanced ultralight aircraft has greater flexibility, but from a regulatory perspective, it's limited by its weight. Batteries have come a long ways, but battery energy density and the weight of the battery system on a 1,900-pound aircraft is significant to enabling it to be a functional trainer in this case. We have a 3.5-hour flight endurance with the Sunflyer. But the 1,900-pound gross weight enables the number of batteries necessary to have a practical utility as a trainer. That pipistrel that was mentioned a few minutes ago is very limited. It's about a 45-minute flight time. It's difficult to have much of a training syllabus, training sortie in a 45-minute, perhaps an hour flight time. By the time you get to a practice area and do some practice flying, it's almost time to turn around and return. So Pipistrel talks about their airplane as a light sport, as perhaps a pattern trainer, just going around the traffic pattern. This aircraft has the full FAR Part 23 utility, full training syllabus utility, absolutely uncompromised in every respect. Low noise, no avgas, no leaded fuel, and of course, a fantastic operating cost. The combination of engineering enables it. It's not just batteries and motors. As I mentioned, it's also structures and aerodynamics. And all together in combination creates the Sunflyer. One of the things that is mentioned often is, what about safety? And of course, we've heard and seen along the way a little bit of the safety discussion come up. We've had meetings with the FAA with regard to our batteries, with regard to the development and engineering process on those batteries. And we're partnered with a company called EP Systems. EP Systems is the lead engineer and battery provider for the NASA X-57. They not only meet the DO-160, but they also meet the NASA criteria for safety for batteries. And it's not just an engineered safety. It's a laboratory-tested, crushed, broken, poked, destroyed. They literally did everything they possibly could to demonstrate incredible safety with a brand new high-tech battery pack. Those battery packs will be flying on the X-57 soon, but they're flying today on the Sunflyer. This is perhaps my favorite slide of the whole program. because it shows you the difference that good engineering and that L over D factor ultimately make. You have up there the Sunflyer on the left, the Cessna in the middle, and the Diamond on the right. All great airplanes, popular airplanes, all used in training, the Cessna being the number one, of course, in the world, as I mentioned. At the bottom, across the bottom there, you can see the number of pounds of thrust needed to keep the airplane in the air at your L over D speed. For us, that's about 70 knots, a little bit faster for the 172, a little bit less for the Diamond. 92 pounds of thrust, a little under 100 pounds of thrust, more than twice that for the Cessna, for example. That translates to average energy used. And if I need 20 to 25 kilowatts per hour on average to fly, and I've got 73 kilowatt hours useful, in addition to reserve, in addition to a depth of charge reserve, that means I have an over 3-hour flight time. It's just that simple in terms of physics. I've got a battery safety margin, an FAA 30-minute VFR reserve margin, and then I've got 73 kilowatt hours left. So if I'm using an average of 20 to 25 kilowatt per hour, that's how simple the physics are. But it starts with an aircraft that has the aerodynamic efficiency of, with an L over D of over 20. We use 20.6, by the way. The actual, in the preliminary design review, the actual number is over 22. And of course, we've talked about the differences between a light sport or advanced ultralight as compared to a certified FAR Part 23 or EASA aircraft. The limitations on an ultralight or a light sport are significant compared to the FAA certified Part 23. And I might add, I don't know, do we have any FAA representatives here today? We had 2 days of meetings with the FAA. 15 FAA personnel flew into Denver. Imagine 15 FAA personnel in the same room at the same time. I mean, that's unheard of. And Charlie Johnson's experience, of course, as president of Cessna, unprecedented. 15 FAA personnel, engineers, certification experts, the people who helped write the new Part 23 policy and practical certification standards. For 2 days, we discussed how are we going to certify an electric airplane? It's never been done before. But never have we ever experienced a more proactive, positive group of people. And I know that's hard to say for some of us when you say FAA at the same time, in that same sentence. But it's really true. They want and they need electric aviation to succeed. You know, our fleet of FAA certified aircraft are 50 years old. The two-seat trainer segment, about 10,800 airplanes. In 2008, they averaged over 48 years old. That's the training fleet today operating to train the new pilots. Absolutely phenomenal to think about that. But we need a trainer that has full utility, full capability, and of course, in the electric, the FAR Part 23 is now approved. It was in place August last year, and we are certifying the Sunflyer. It's underway right now with the FAA. So the application's been made, meetings with the FAA are underway, and the Sunflyer certification program is happening now. I love charging stations. Josh, we will be working closely together on that. Of course, it's not just the aircraft. You have to have the infrastructure to support the aircraft. We're working with large flight schools initially, which makes the logistics of charging and supporting a fleet much simpler. As you know, I think last year we talked about Spartan Aeronautical College with 26 aircraft. We're announcing today, and tomorrow morning we'll be announcing with the press, 30 aircraft with the Aspen Aero Flying Club. So we now have a new flight school partner that's actually surpassed Spartan with an order for 30 aircraft. So we're over 130 aircraft now on order from flight schools all around the world. In the last few weeks, Norway, Israel, Hong Kong, forgetting some others, but great support all around the world, Europe, Asia, and again, Aspen Flying Club just now announced with a 30 aircraft order. So practical electric aviation is on its way right now, today. Here's some fun images from flying, of course. John Penny's our flight test pilot. You kind of see the aircraft on its way, airborne there at Centennial Airport in the Denver area. The aircraft will not be here at Oshkosh. We're at booth number 90. Siemens is now our motor partner. We just announced Siemens will be providing our motors for the Sunflyer. The prototype is underway with a retrofit to the Siemens motor, literally right now as I speak. And it was hard for us to rationalize coming to Oshkosh with an airplane that, of course, we're trying to get timely certified. So taking a month out to transport it here and transport it back was not a practical solution. We'll have a mock-up of the Siemens and battery motor arrangement. We'll have some great videos and some, of course, our EP Systems, our battery partner, will be there along with Siemens at our booth. But booth number 90 if you'd like to come by and visit with us further. The production conformed aircraft has a little bit longer wing, the Siemens motor, 10 battery packs instead of the 7 we have on the developmental prototype. You can see the winglets adding a little bit to the aerodynamics. Slightly different door and top of the cabin arrangement there. I love this picture. You notice how the motion there of the structure, flutter, bending, G-loading, the overall structural integrity, and again with a battery and motor, electric motor arrangement, the structural system arrangement is interestingly quite different than a conventional Cessna, Mooney, Piper, Cirrus. That's a dry wing. The aerodynamics of that wing benefit from a simpler, more elegant structural arrangement. We have 1 square foot of flat plate area there around the nose of the airplane compared to 11 square feet of flat plate area on a Cessna 172. Great aerodynamics translate to great efficiency, and of course, lower thrust required and a more efficient operation. So as I mentioned, tremendous performance out of the airplane, over 1,000 feet per minute rate of climb, 138 knots at 5,000 feet, over 20 knots faster than the Cessna 172 that we're replacing. Let me repeat that. Over 20 knots faster than the Cessna 172 we're replacing.
Can you repeat that?
I mean, when the Prius was introduced, we were all thinking, oh my goodness, you know, here comes electric, and it's boxy and it's slow and it's low performance. And along comes electric aircraft, and of course people have this perception, well, it's an ultralight, it's a light sport, it'll kind of plod along. It may be efficient and quiet, but it doesn't have any performance. At 5,000 feet, 138 knots, and that's with another 10 kilowatts yet to go in our continuous power rating. In other words, we'll be even faster than that with the two-seater. You know what our altitude is? I will take from the audience any suggestion what our altitude is for the Sunflyer. 280 was one. Anybody else?
Higher.
It is higher. Carl, I'll give you a shot. Josh. 38,000 feet. 38,000 feet. Now, practically speaking, of course, 17,500 for a VFR airplane, et cetera, et cetera. But electric doesn't consume oxygen. There is no density altitude restraint for the Sunflyer. 38,000 feet. Amazing. Whole new possibilities become imaginable with the Sunflyer. Here's a typical cross-country, 2.8 hours, 10,000 feet, 250 nautical miles. Absolutely no restraints on a typical flight training syllabus. And again, I mentioned 73 kilowatt hours. We actually have 15, almost 20 kilowatt hours more in the battery pack than what we're using as our baseline performance measurement. That includes the VFR 30-minute reserve. That includes a further restraint on the battery pack itself for its longevity. And of course, the standard meat and potatoes, takeoff and landing, pattern work, the 1.2 hour syllabus typical is well within the capability of the airplane. In fact, we can probably double turn, almost trip turn with the aircraft before recharging. This is the bottom line for a flight school. This is why the flight schools are ordering aircraft. When it gets right down to how you maintain and operate and fly a fleet of trainers, this is the bottom line. This is exactly what you were referencing. It boils down to cost. $14, including battery pack reserve. And the fun thing about battery packs is they just get better. So in about the 3 to 5 year timeline that we're replacing the battery packs for a high ops tempo flight school, the battery pack useful life, the battery pack energy density will likely have improved by about 30%, perhaps as much as 50%. So the 3.5 hour flight endurance Sunflyer 2 now becomes a 4.5 or 5 hour Sunflyer 2. And the 4-seat Sunflyer, of course, even better. The fun thing about electric is not just the economics and the aerodynamics, but also the future and how we look forward to an improving future as batteries just get better. And of course, on a cross country, depending on how you're using the aircraft, you can see the numbers are, well, let me put it this way. We call it a $100 hamburger when we go with our friends for a cross country to go get lunch somewhere. This kind of changes the metrics. And of course, the Sunflyer 4 we introduced last year. Many of our friends, pilot owners, are putting orders now in for the Sunflyer 4 as well. It's the stretched version of the Sunflyer 2. It's about 36 inches longer. And of course, heavier, allowing for the additional battery packs, the higher speed, and the longer range. And again, you look at the economics. with a Cirrus or a Cessna 182. Absolutely compelling. It's not even fair. It's hard to imagine in the same market electric aircraft with conventional aircraft. Imagine a 50-year-old Cessna 182 sitting next to a brand new Sunflyer 4 aircraft. The economics and performance are so disruptive you cannot put the two in the same market. We'll look at the Los Angeles area as one possibility, and of course there's many metro areas that have similar kinds of density. I think there's some 30 plus airports in the LA area, 30 to 50, depending on how you count. Imagine the possibility of using those airports today that cannot or are underutilized and providing support for commerce and transportation, charter, and personal use in that area. No emissions, no noise, and extremely low cost. Santa Barbara to LA in an electric airplane, 3 to 4 times faster than it would be to drive, and less expensive than it is to drive. So you look at the economics again compared to some of the traditional general aviation aircraft. So in kind of wrapping up, it's important, I think, from our perspective with Aerospace, that our innovation and pioneering work is to solve a problem. You look at all the statistics and the numbers around the industry that we're concerned about addressing. Electric aviation addresses these problems. If you understand the demand from a broader industry perspective, what that means to the people that need to fly those aircraft, that translates to a trainer demand and a rationale for Aerospace and the Sunflyer to exist. We need to have solutions that meet economic requirements. It's not just recreation, it's innovation with a purpose. It's a lot of pilots and a lot of aircraft. And again, the number one reason why they drop out is cost. So addressing that with the Sunflyer is a huge, huge requirement met. So the Sunflyer 2 and the Sunflyer 4 are being introduced to the market. The Sunflyer 2 is $289,000. Sunflyer 4, $389,000. We're taking deposits for both aircraft. It's about a 2-year timeline, mid-2020 for the Sunflyer 2, and about a year or so after that for the Sunflyer 4. We believe the Sunflyer 4 will get certification credit from the 2 because literally it's a stretch of the aircraft with a similar systems architecture. So at least thus far in conversations with the FAA, they are agreeing with us that architecture similarity will allow an acceleration to the certification program. The motor and batteries are both TSO. They'll be supported by Siemens and EP Systems respectively, so we won't be, they will be working with us on the certification of the batteries and the motors, but in the collective Aerospace can accelerate the certification program with that approach. So that was some great news with the FAA. And again, a quick comparison to some of the other fleet. You're probably well aware, and we've already covered it quite a bit, but the advantages with electric are absolutely phenomenal. So disruptive affordability translates to market viability, and of course the training that results will bring a new generation of pilots into the cabins of the Airbus and Boeing aircraft around the world. We think there's about a 15,000 aircraft requirement. Those 10,800 trainers and a portion of the personal use aircraft will be replaced, we think, with electric. So over the next 10 or 20 years, about 15,000 units would be our prediction for the market in the near-term future. Lots of great media. Who gets AOPA magazine? Does everybody? There's a great article in the new one that just came out on the Sunflyer. Please enjoy that. We're very grateful to AOPA flying and a number of the media outlets and the coverage that we've been getting. So it's been absolutely wonderful. We're honored as a team to be bringing the Sunflyer to market. As was already mentioned by Kevin and Josh, I think we all agree that we win when we work collaboratively together. This is an industry that's changing, and people in this room help make that possible. Thank you.